While touring the New England states in September 2023, we had an opportunity to visit the preeminent port city of Newport, Rhode Island. Newport is considered to be the sailing capital of the world. The America's Cup yacht racing competition was held here for 53 years straight up until 1983. But this city by the sea is also famous for being the place where America's wealthiest families built their summer mansions during the Gilded Age in the turn of the 20th century. This is where President John F. Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy Onassis spent their summers, and where they were married at St. Mary's Church in September 1953. The name New England was coined by the English colonists who came here in 1636, wanting to recreate a society on the American continent that mirrored their homeland of England. Over time, the term New England became associated with the 6 northeastern states that make up the region today: Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and Rhode Island. Rhode Island was established on the foundation of religious freedom, and it also attracted a very free-spirited population of residents. They were so free-spirited and rambunctious that by the 1700s, Rhode Island had earned the nickname of Rogue Island. The people who lived here were known as the Rogues of Rhode Island, and their favorite pastime was drinking. Rhode Island was the center of alcohol production in the new colonies, and by the early 1700s there were 100 distilleries here. Before long, Rhode Island was a major exporter of liquor and a key player in the African slave trade. Rum would leave Rhode Island for Africa, where it was traded for slaves. The slaves primarily went to West Indies, and they were traded there for sugarcane and molasses that was brought back to Rhode Island to make the rum. It was called the triangular trade, and it was vastly profitable at every leg of the journey, and of course completely immoral and inhumane. It was this brutal system that fueled the growth of Newport's economy, making slavery an integral part of the city's prosperity. The early Newport settlers were also revolutionaries. They couldn't wait to get away from the British, and that was primarily based on them not wanting to pay taxes. Rhode Island actually declared its National Independence Day on May 4, 1776, while the rest of the nation celebrates Independence Day on July 4, 1776. Newport's fortunes have always rested heavily on its harbor. The city was founded on the harbor and gained its fame because of it. The main headquarters of the New York Yacht Club is in Newport, based in the harbor. Over the centuries, Newport has experienced several different ages. Its golden age was defined by the triangular trading of slaves and liquor and other commodities in the 1700s. The Golden Age ended abruptly in 1776 when the British came to town. The British had been in Boston, but George Washington chased them out of Boston, and they settled in Newport in 1776, and they took over the town for 3 years. 90% of Newport's residents left during the British occupation, and those were 3 of the coldest years on record. The British stripped the island of its trees, and when they ran out of firewood, they started dismantling the homes. When the British left Newport in 1779, the town was completely decimated. It didn't recover for 100 years. Then, starting in the 1870s and the 1880s, Newport had its Gilded Age. Newport epitomized the opulence and extravagance of that era. Prominent families like the Vanderbilts and the Astors built sprawling estates here. Socialites flocked to Newport for its lavish parties, extravagant balls, and exclusive yacht races. Newport's status as a summer retreat for the rich and powerful was solidified during this time. The HBO series The Gilded Age was mostly shot in Newport, Rhode Island, in the mansions here built during that era. The Gilded Age lasted from about the 1870s to the 1920s. It started to decline due to the newly instituted income tax and the advent of World War I. By the time the Great Depression came, the type of conspicuous consumption that exemplified the Gilded Age was no longer in style. After World War II, the town of Newport was again struggling. A lot of the mansions had passed through a couple of generations, and people didn't want them. They were tearing down old homes and using the properties to build condos and other developments. Around that time, the Preservation Society of Newport County was formed by a group of socialite women to preserve historic mansions here. We were thrilled for a chance to tour one of Newport's most famous mansions. On the rugged shores of Newport, Rhode Island, lies a mansion that has transcended time and American history like no other. The Breakers. Built in 1895 for Cornelius Vanderbilt II, this architectural marvel came to life during the Gilded Age of the late 19th century and stands as a witness to the opulence and excess of America's wealthy elite during that era. The public was both mesmerized and revolted by the extravagant display of conspicuous consumption at the Breakers, which was made possible by the unbridled accumulation of riches by the privileged few. For that reason, the construction of this lavish mansion also marked a pivotal turning point in United States history, because the ensuing outrage over wealth inequality led to the creation of the income tax, which in the beginning was only paid by the rich. This was the largest and most opulent of all the cottages in Newport, Rhode Island when it was built. The palatial palaces here were referred to as cottages by the captains of industry who dared to dream on a scale as grand as the houses they erected. This stunning masterpiece was designed by renowned architect Richard Morris Hunt. It was built as a summer retreat for the Vanderbilt family and was a symbol of the immense wealth that Cornelius Vanderbilt II harvested from his railroad empire. The sheer size of the Breakers is tremendous. It is 3 times as large as the White House. It cost $7 million to build the Breakers in 1895, which is about $220 million today. It contains 70 rooms, features a limestone facade, intricate wrought iron gates, and sumptuous interiors adorned with marble, gold leaf, and intricate woodwork. A descendant of Cornelius Vanderbilt II has lived in the house from 1895 up until 2018. Over the years, the mansion has served various purposes, including as a Navy training center during World War II. Today, it stands as a symbol of Newport's historic preservation efforts and is open to the public, allowing visitors to step back in time and experience the lavishness of America's Gilded Age elite. Before the concept of philanthropy took hold in the late 19th century, the rich were less concerned about giving money to charities and nonprofits to promote the greater good. It was mostly about flaunting their wealth and trying to outdo each other. The darker truth behind the grandeur of the Breakers is that the excesses enjoyed by this one family contrasted so sharply against the struggles of so many at that time. It's easy to see how this kind of extravagance would have been a catalyst for a tax revolution that was intended to redistribute wealth in America so that this nation could be a land of opportunity for all. But 100 years later, the tables have turned, and the burden of taxes has mostly been shifted to middle and low-income workers who still support the excesses of the rich.